Let's take a little trip down memory lane to just a few weeks ago when supposed sensible lefty Bill Maher had convinced himself that Kamala was going to win and win comfortably. This has aged like a glass of milk.
Am I going to worry about it? First of all, I'm not going to worry about it, Phil, because he's not going to win. First of all, she's definitely going to win the popular vote, as Democrats almost always do now. But I think she will win.
Oh dear, how wrong can you be, Bill? You want to pretend you're the critical thinker, the leftist who isn't protected from reality, but your Trump derangement syndrome has you uttering absurdities like this. I hope Dr. Phil stepped in with a prescription after this rant about Trump's supporters.
His followers, I think, I don't think their heart will really be in it, as it was in 2020. Some of them, there's lots of people who will always be in the bunker with Mrs. Goebbels, taking the poison and giving the poison to the children because it's better than living in a world without National Socialism.
Dr. Phil's face says it all. This dude is beyond help. Bill Maher may occasionally say something sensible, essentially copying what conservatives have said for years, what we've said when it actually mattered, but in the end, he's just another lefty losing it, like this dude on CNN having a full-blown tantrum because a conservative on the panel, Michael Singleton, actually used accurate language to describe boys as boys.
There are a lot of families out there who don't believe boys should play girls' sports.
They're not boys. I'm not going to listen to transphobia at this table. I am not going to listen to you call a trans girl a boy.
Are you going to allow me to finish my explanation?
When you use a word that's a slur, I'm going to interrupt. That's not how it is. They're not boys. They're not boys. They're not playing girls' softball. I'm not going to sit there and listen to that.
Let's reset for a second because, look, this is a really heated issue, right? And Michael, I know you. I know that you understand that people have different views on this. I think out of respect for Jay, let's try to talk about this in a way that is respectful.
You know, shame on the host there for siding with the fringe-dwelling hysterical clown and trying to police the completely accurate and reasonable language of a man who was making the pertinent point that most normal people don't want boys in girls' sports. But the white dude for Kamala, well, his tantrum was not over yet.
So the way regular people interpret it,
that's not regular people. That's not regular people. There's no consensus that these are actually boys. This whole thing about trans girls is a canard. We're talking about a tiny, tiny sliver of the population using rhetoric like you just used, saying this is boys playing girls' sports. First of all, we're talking about 5 people in the entire country. We're talking about trans girls being allowed to play with the people who are in their gender. And if you don't believe, you don't have to listen to me. Listen to the American Medical Association, the American Psychological Association.
The American Medical Association.
You can see why Donald Trump won in a landslide. And here is Jon Stewart with a message to the pollsters who protected the left from the truth, from the reality that they're the minority.
Send a quick message to all the pollsters, the election pollsters. Me. I don't ever want to from you again, ever. I don't ever want to hear, we've corrected for the overcorrection of the voters. You don't know about and I don't care for you.
Joining me now is Newsweek's senior editor-at-large and Article 3 Project Senior Counsel, Josh Hammer. Josh, Joe Biden will be hosting President-elect Donald Trump on Wednesday, the man he called a fascist, a white supremacist, a threat to democracy. How's that meeting going to go?
You know, Rita, if half the people that have been calling Donald Trump a Hitlerite fascist, a unique historical threat to American democracy, our constitutional order, if half these people took themselves seriously, they would have already bought plane tickets out of the country. I mean, either the man is Hitler, either he is a Nazi, or he is not. If you believe what you've been saying, even to the slightest degree, you would have been seeking asylum. You would have been trying to flee to Canada at a bare minimum, the longest border in the world, the U.S.-Canadian border. I mean, these people just cannot be taken seriously. I mean, Joe Biden, his meeting with Donald Trump, I mean, Joe Biden has been saying that Donald Trump is Hitler, so is Kamala Harris there. But Joe Biden, as we just saw in that clip, is also not a particularly well man. I mean, he cannot finish a coherent sentence at this point there. So at this point, I'm just hoping that this meeting somehow goes off where they can actually physically communicate to one another. I mean, that is actually the barest of bare minimums, is that he can actually complete sentences in the English language and they can have a conversation. Now, the good thing about Donald Trump, as you know, is that Donald Trump has been president before. He literally has already done this for 4 years. So he probably doesn't need the whole tutorial, the whole learning curve thing. He's been there, done that. He has sat at the Resolute desk. He has been there before. So look, I mean, this transition period is off to a blistering start. The nominees, the personnel were being named on a day in, day out basis there. It's basically going to be an all-out sprint at this point until January 20th, 2025, when Donald Trump, God willing, finally takes power and Joe Biden has seen the ash heap of history.
Now, what do you make of the theory that Joe Biden got his revenge on the Obama-Pelosi-led coup against him by endorsing Kamala Harris, a candidate they didn't want, a candidate that Barack Obama didn't want? Did Joe know that she had no chance of winning, and by endorsing her, he kind of forced everybody else's hand?
You know, I don't think that Joe Biden knows what he's doing. I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, but I genuinely do not think that he is fully in control of either his physical or his mental faculties at this point here. I mean, anything that Joe Biden does, I guess what I'm saying is it's not actually coming from Joe Biden. It's coming from quote unquote Dr. Jill Biden. It's coming from people around him there. Joe Biden is not calling the shots at this particular point there. I mean, the funniest thing to me that I have seen since last Tuesday's election, there is a lot of funny stuff out there. I mean, The View, the left-wing media, they're having conniption fits. Sonny hosted on The View is routinely just saying that the only reason Kamala Harris lost is because of rampant, ubiquitous sexism and misogyny in America. I mean, way to actually miss what's happening right under your nose. But one of the funniest things of this post-election fallout to me is the way that the Biden camp and the Harris camp just continue to snipe at each other as if they are the problem. Let me be very clear. In my opinion, Joe Biden is not the reason the Democrats lost. Kamala Harris is not the reason the Democrats lost. The reason the Democrats lost is the Democrats, is for the actual stances they have taken, for the actual completely radical, out-of-touch nature of the various positions they have taken when it comes to gender, to race, to immigration, to culture, to economics, to foreign policy, you name it. They are completely out of touch with the median American, and unless and until they actually have the introspective moment where they look in the mirror and they actually realize that, unless and until that happens, I think Republicans are well set to continue winning well into the future at this point.
Well, that analysis has been just so completely divorced from reality. If they don't actually figure it out, we're going to see a dynasty of Republicans in the White House, because they seem to be doubling down, the Democrats, on the craziness, the identity politics, the victimhood, all the dogmas that have really crippled them as a party and alienated them from so much of their supporter base. I want to play you a clip from Megyn Kelly, a woman who has had clashes with Donald Trump in the past, but she was a very strong supporter for him in 2024. And here she explains why the Democrats and their miserable cat lady ideology lost.
Standing up for female empowerment, which I've done my entire life, does not require me to all over American men. I'm sorry. But this is why I never called myself a feminist to begin with, because I knew what you leftists thought of feminism. It meant abortion and crapping on men. And most of us women over on the side of the normies don't want that. We love our husband. We love our boys, our sons, our dads, our brothers, our male friends and colleagues, and we are not ready to consider this a zero-sum game where we must advance at their expense. Until you get that through your thick head, you'll keep losing.
God, I love her. She makes some excellent points there. The Democrats would do well to listen to the likes of Megyn Kelly instead of the ladies of The View or the MSNBC crazies, because if they actually listen to that, they could address it and be competitive next time.
Yeah, Rita, they could, but they will choose not to do so. And I think that they have a very concerted reason why they are choosing not to do so. I mean, look, one of two things has to be true when it comes to this post-mortem analysis, if you can even call it that Democrats are very publicly engaging in. On the one hand, they're actually really stupid. I mean, like, one possibility is that they're genuinely operating at a low IQ level. I don't actually believe that to be the case. I genuinely actually do not think that is true. So that raises the alternative possibility as to what actually is going on here. And what I was discussing with some others here earlier today, I'm actually on the road to speak to some college and law school students. So what I was discussing earlier today with some college students that I'm speaking to is what I think is happening. The Democrats have become so convinced over the course of 15, 20, 30 years, especially since Barack Obama in 2008, they've become so convinced of their own moral and ethical and indeed intellectual superiority. They are so convinced that they are actually better than the rest of America, flyover country, the people who live closer to a river valley in America rather than the two coasts and people like that. They think that their values are better. They think that their way of life is better. Their approach to everything from religion to economics to transgender to immigration to race. They are so convinced that they are superior, that therefore the only possible explanation as to how the political party that ostensibly embodies and exudes this great virtuous movement, the only reason why it could possibly lose under this ridiculous analysis is that half the country is actually racist, sexist, bigot, homophobe. That is actually, I think, what you're seeing out there. Megyn Kelly is obviously spot on. She's one of our most astute observers of the American political scene today. She's actually giving a very free bit of advice here to a political party that is not her own. They would be very wise to take it, but they're probably not going to do so.